Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at the Taoist view of success and fulfillment. First, why is this important? Why is this an important conversation to have, and why should we consider it? Well, it is important because obviously how successful or unsuccessful we are to a large degree determines the quality of our life, determines our self-esteem, determines our self-worth and our happiness, and so many other impactful characteristics of who and what we are. Now, to a Taoist, there's a lot of problems that come up with this construct, and that's precisely what we're going to look at in this video. So we've already understood why, so now let's take a look at what we usually mean by success. Success and desire in the physical world most of the time consists of basically, I am going to do Y so I can get X. And sometimes this is conscious, other times it's not so conscious. Sometimes we say, I'm going to get this job so I can get this next job, or I'm going to get this job so I can buy this thing, or I'm going to take this thing so I can do this thing. And then there are other unconscious things that people have where, oh, I'm going to get this plastic surgery and then people will be more attracted to me, I'll be more attractive. Or, oh, I'm going to buy this kind of car or this kind of clothes, and then people will think I'm cool and think I belong to this certain kind of group. So just from these examples, we can see how fundamentally this underlies really desire, and this underlies what we consider success and achievement in both conscious and unconscious ways. And we usually say, okay, I'm going to do this to get that, and we imply three separate things, or three interdependent things actually. The first being permanence, second being ownership, and the third being a permanent independent self. So we think, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to get this thing. Okay, and it's going to last forever, or it's going to be this certain way, or it's going to happen how I imagined it. Most of the time, that doesn't happen. We think we're going to get this thing and then people will like us or we'll have the thing that we want, and we get it and we realize it's not really what we wanted, or when we get it we realize we don't want it anymore, or it's not what we thought it would be, or people don't care, people don't respond, we don't feel any better, we don't feel any different, or we feel different for a little while and then we go right back to where we were before. Second is this whole thing of ownership, and thirdly of an independent self. Well, if everything in reality is fundamentally impermanent and always changing, including ourselves, then how can we really own anything? Especially based on the mechanics of most of the time, this do Y to get X mindset really only creates suffering in the short, medium, and long term. Because we're always doing something so we can get something else and hoping it will give us something else. We're expending all of this energy. We're working for status. We're working for achievement. We're working for, material wealth and all of these things. We're putting out all this energy. But are those things that we're working for us? Are they investing energy in us? Are they giving energy back to us? Are they stressing and having tension and anxiety for us? If the answer is no, then who was really working for who? And who was really owning who? And again, it's really creating suffering. So fundamentally to the Taoist idea, we have to look at the nature of reality, which is fundamentally impermanence, and this aspect of desire really creating this hungry ghost syndrome. Now, impermanence is basically everything in reality is constantly changing all the time. That is the nature of reality. So when we want to grab onto something and hold it permanently and make sure it's only this little narrow idea that we have, that's a fundamental contradiction with the nature of reality, so it's probably going to create problems. Second, if we're always desiring, we're always hungry, never fulfilled. We get this job or car and we think it's going to do this, but then wait, it doesn't. Or we achieve this little thing, or we have this idea that we're going to do something to someone else, but it really never ever pans out the way we think it would be. And we're kind of just operating on kind of a demonic level of consciousness, because we are in essence being controlled by our agendas, our motivations, our desire to have to prove something or make sure someone else knows something. And this is really just creating bondage, drainage, and essentially slavitude. Because these ideas, these motivations, these things that we have to prove to everyone, they're usually controlling us. And that's where all of our energy is going. That's what's determining the quality of our life. That's what's determining the focus of our life. Thus, that is bondage, that is drainage, and that is essentially slavitude. Because those things aren't really, most of the time, working for us. We are working for them. And usually we don't get much out of them. And usually, like we learned earlier, it doesn't really pan out how we thought it would be. So we're in the world and we're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this and prove this to this person. I'm going to do this and then they're going to know that, or they're going to think this. But really, we're just operating on ultimately a demonic level of consciousness because we are in slavitude to this fantasy or this imagination that we've created in our head because we think we're going to do Y to get X, which fundamentally we're contradicting the whole nature of reality and fundamentally disrespecting our unique nature and thus constraining and dampening our inherent life force and our inherent vitality, thus really creating more problems down the long term. So the question is, well, what is the solution? What is the way? What is the answer? What can we do? Well, some things to maybe look at would be, well, how can we alternatively approach situations? How can we learn to alternatively approach life rather than this always do Y to get X? And what is a correct thing for us to do? How can we determine what is correct? Kind of like, how do we know the difference between our body saying, drink water, I'm thirsty, or put on a jacket, it's cold, versus Coke is better than Pepsi, Abercrombie & Fitch is better than Gap? Basically, how do we start to learn the distinction between those two modes of operation, those two modes of consciousness? And fundamentally, how do we know the difference? And how do we start to learn what is correct for us? And really, what are the alternatives? What is the alternative to this approach, to this mindset? And how can we learn to approach life in a more harmonious and more appropriate way? Well, these are all great questions to think about and good things to meditate, which will very likely open doors. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.